So, Lisa, you were on the podcast. We both are sitting here racking our brains. We didn't know if it was season 1 or season 2, and reached out to you in the last month to ask you kind of a professional question. We got into a great chat. You're doing so much, and I had to have you back on the show. So, we've changed things up since you've been on the show. We're now doing videos. So, we have to do our hair and makeup and all the things to look great.
Oh my gosh, okay. I'm going to put it back just for that. But anyway, yeah.
And I think where I want to go with this conversation today is I want to lean into some leadership questions, but really talk about promoting each other, especially if you're in the same sector and how we do that as women, because I'm still seeing that very much as a pre-COVID and post-COVID element of behavior. And I would love to just dig into that with you a little bit. And then I do have new questions for the Fab Four, because you have to enhance each year, right? And it allows our listeners. We are now in 87 countries. And I've interviewed over 300 amazing leaders around the globe that are heart-centered and just doing amazing things.
Oh, good.
So I just want to welcome you back, because I always have a great conversation with you. I always learn something from you. And who doesn't like another badass female entrepreneur?
I don't know. Female entrepreneur too. Badass. I don't know. So I'm excited.
Well, I'm thinking, so let's talk about it. Because when we were chatting, I loved hearing the excitement in your voice of all the things you've done since I first met you. And we'll figure that date out. But it was either 2 and possibly 3 years ago when you were first on the show, and we were just doing audio then. And kind of where I'm going with my first question, my team was like, okay, it's time to do video, get out of your comfort zone. And I just kept doing videos. And you know me, I use candor and humor both as a shield and an element of personality, because who doesn't like to laugh?
Wins.
Yeah. And laughing at self, especially, which I do multiple times. But where I want to go with my first question is, how do you lean in as a female entrepreneur with your amazing company? And I'd love to hear where you leaned in, where you wanted to grow, and share with us some of the elements that are still scary in doing that. Because I think people see successful people and they think that we still don't have all the emotions that go with innovation and growth and all the things in business.
I think there's a few things to that. And I love the fact that you said the emotions of it, because we always seem to think that business is about, the practicality. But, business is human. And if you can't get the people right, it doesn't matter about the strategy and the execution. I will tell you that has been my biggest Achilles heel. I've always had really good strategy, and I've had I'm a very execution-driven person. But if you don't have the right people on the team, especially as a female leader, you are constantly, are you a coach or a babysitter?
Mm.
And one of the things, this is kind of getting to your question, which is, one of the biggest things that I've learned as a female leader is how not to be, how to kind of break out of some of the norms that women are taught. And what I mean by that is the caregiver. I'll take care of it first and then I'm sure it'll come back to you, and it doesn't. And so I think part of the issue with female leaders and myself, what I've really struggled with is, how do you make sure that putting you in the business first, you don't have this thing in the back of your head that you're a bad person by doing that. And I think a lot of women struggle with that, meaning if I don't take care of everybody, if I get ahead, I'm bad. I can't get ahead without having everybody be okay. And that has been one of the things that I've had a particular challenge overcoming until recently. So I think one of the things as a female leader and myself is, you always want to have a culture where you bring people along, right? You want them to bring their best selves. You want them to feel supported. You want them to feel fair. But it is it's not a one-way street, right? It's not a transaction, but it is a contract. And people have to deliver on that too. I think that is particularly difficult for women, because demanding people to deliver on a promise is seen as bad. Demanding is not a word that we use. And so I think being able to get comfortable with that has been something that I've struggled with. And I'm actually just now getting comfortable with it. So I think if I get even more comfortable with that, I'll take off even more. Like I think,
Oh, 100%.
yeah, if I could have run my business like I wanted to versus what I was told to do 20 years ago, I would be in a much different place.
Oh, I join you in that arena. There's a few things I need to unpack because I loved how you answered that and framed it. We are the caregiver and we wear so many different hats.
Too many.
And I hear my female coaching clients say, okay, caught up at work, home's in disarray. Caught up at home, works like it's this teeter totter. And what I love is I have one female CEO in a sector, and she said, you know what I did? I became the CEO of my home.
Yeah.
And I figured that I can't work in my home all the time, but I'll work on it and I'll apply some CEO strategies. And she brought in everybody to do the things that she loves to do, but she doesn't have the bandwidth. So now she has her goal of quality time with her family. And she's got someone prepping her food, and she's got someone cleaning her house, and she's got someone helping with childcare and all the things. And she said, I love doing laundry, but I gave it up because if I get to go on a date night with my husband, I'm going to do that. So I feel like we are constantly in this exchange, as you framed it, transaction of thought, trying to balance the emotion. And I just think that's brilliant.
I think that one of the issues right now with work is that work has become a place, given where society is, that has to solve all the problems. It's kind of like right now, the problem that teachers have at school is they're supposed to solve all the parenting problems. It's like it's their problem. And the same thing at work is it's work now has to become the community, your identity, your in the United States, it's your benefits, your healthcare. There's so much pressure of what work has to deliver. Versus in the past, it was a salary, it was a thing, and I could get satisfaction in my life outside of work. And, with my community, with my neighbors, with my friends. Well, now that people have become so, they do so much work and so much of their identity is tied in work, that work has to deliver so much more than it ever has before. And so I have found that we've gotten off balance, in my personal opinion, of what work needs to deliver and what the expectations are of what people think work needs to deliver. Work owes you a living. It doesn't owe you a life. Mm-hmm. And work, you have to create a great place to work, but there's a contract for that, which is my job is I got to give you a great place to work, but you're not fitting work into your life. You've got to balance both. And so, as you can tell, I've had a recalibration within my work, which is
absolutely. And I'm not a fan of the word balance because I think it's an intangible reality, to be honest.
I think everyone's balance is different, but it
is.
But the problem is for a lot of female leaders is that they're then made to solve that. And what I mean by that is for men, it's going to be a lot easier because they can make the hard choices and they get the perception is different. I can make the hard choices too, but the repercussions for me are different, period.
Absolutely.
So what I mean by that is I've had to it takes you longer as a female leader because you have to be different in the steps that you take to get there.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. I'm kind of answering this in a roundabout way. I think being a female leader is it just takes you longer to get to places, even though you know where you need to go, because you are carrying the emotional weight and baggage and expectation. Whether it's subconscious, whether it's on my part or it's on the employee's part, to solve problems that in the past work didn't have to solve.
Absolutely. It's a different world. Now, I asked you this next question. We're not sure if it was 2 or 3 years ago. It doesn't really matter.
Oh, me.
I've kept it as permanent residency on the show because it's a fun question. It's a reflective question. It promotes candor. It promotes humor. What imperfections are still hanging out in your heart-centered leadership?
Oh, well, that's a good question. So what are the imperfections? Well, I can tell you my imperfections. Like I think I just mentioned some, which were the balancing, it's okay to demand. It's okay to ask for the equal, the quid pro quo. It's okay. It's not your job, right, to solve people's life problems. That's a one of them. I think the other thing for me is if you support too much, you're exacerbating or contributing to a problem.
Yeah.
Rather than accountability.
And I love your answer because it leads in nicely to my next question. When you talk about demand, is that your interpretation or behavior of how you utilize and integrate assertive leadership as a female leader?
Yeah, and demand is a hard word, I think, for female leaders.
Mhm.
And it's not, you can demand things, but it's the tone. I mean, there's lots of ways to demand things, but men can demand, women have to ask. There's a difference in permission.
Mhm.
And if you're the one paying and you're the boss, again, it's a contract. So there's things that need to be made. I think what you were saying, what are the imperfections? To me, it's also clarity. So women have to spend a lot of time hedging and doing and whatever and asking and night versus it's a lot easier as a man to just demand. Like people know exactly what needs to be done. I think for me, getting even clearer on being demanding and clarity is something that really helps people in terms of knowing where you stand, whether they like it or not. That's a different story.
And I think the more conversations I have with female leaders, assertive leadership is hard. They know what it is, but again, it's like you just said, it's a different ask for them. It's a different integration. It's a different execution.
For me, it's not hard. Like I am a very direct, I'm as we say, like I'm a Midwestern, but like I'm a very practical, what you see is what you get. I'm nice. It's what it is. I mean, it is. I don't think anyone could say that I'm not. Like I'm known as someone who can be funny and down to earth, whether that's a reflection of something that happened to me in the past, but that's how I am, right?
Yeah.
Like I want people to know like this is what it is. But I can't tell you the amount of times, Debbie, that's been seen as, like if my husband was sitting right here, I would say, Brian, you can say that. And it's, God, he's so direct. He just knows what he wants. If I say it, right, I'm too assertive.
Yeah.
So then I have to hedge and it takes me longer to get there. So I know very much what assertive leadership is. I'm just not allowed to do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because sometimes assertiveness is misconstrued as aggression, or we get called the B word. And we have a different set of norms, like you said at the beginning of this interview today. And it'll be me. I'm hoping to see a shift in this lifetime. I'm really hoping. I bask in younger leadership. I pour into younger leadership. It's a big wish for me. So my last leadership question, because I'm newly doing EQI 2.0 and EQI 360s as a practitioner.
Great.
Loving emotional intelligence. So my last leadership question is, I want you to think about this sentence, and I'm going to tap into your vulnerability. If we really knew you, finish that sentence. If people really knew me, what would be a vulnerability that you could slide in to finish that sentence?
Boy, I hadn't thought about that. If people really knew me, they would know. I think they would see my humor come out even more.
Yeah, and I see that in you. I do.
Yeah, I have a lot of humor, but my natural state, like if you see me having a glass of wine with my friends, is like literally people will leave my house. They've drunk way too much and laughed. As they like to say, they've peed their pants. Like they have literally because I don't care. Like I think life can be like so fun. What do you think? Well, get over yourself. Like I'm really good at self-deprecating humor because I think there's, meanness is when you make fun of others, but humor is when you can make fun of yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And we're human, right? We all do silly stuff. So let's break down the bar. I'm good at getting people to tell their real stories.
Yeah.
Be real with them. And I think people could see a lot more of that at work and when I'm on stage. If I didn't have if I wasn't dealing with everybody else's stuff all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, if people really knew me, it would be if I didn't have to deal with all of this is more of who you would see.
Yeah. And I have a friend like you and makes me laugh to that level. And I always tease her and say, I love that I can call you any time of the day and I'm getting off the phone, like can't even breathe because I'm laughing so hard. And I always say to her, you're going to live to be like 115 because the dopamine is like showering your brain on any given nanosecond of the day. But just, she just has that positive intelligence. She's highly agile with emotional intelligence. And like you, she doesn't let the small stuff or the unimportant stuff, as she says, invade her frontal lobe because she's the master of that. And that's powerful. And it's hard.
Yeah. And if that's what people, but so I think that's just the balance thing, which is women, I'm better at that in my personal life than I am in work life, because my work life, I feel like sometimes have to be held back very differently than in my personal life.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, it's interesting. And I think
It is.
it's cultural and social, but I also think you get to a certain age where at that point that doesn't matter anymore.
Well, when I was in my 30s, I had a mentor who was in her 40s, and she said, when you hit 40, you know where you are. You hit the green light and you go. And then my friend in her 50s said, when you get to 50, you've enjoyed the 40s, but you just decide that you don't give a shit anymore. I need to say that because this is my show. And then it's interesting because I have friends in 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Of course.
And they always say this wonderful saying to me. And they say, in your 60s, you slow. No, in your 60s, you go. In your 70s, you slow. And in your 80s, you stop.
Oh.
And given the trajectory of, a modern elder, which is 45 and older, largest demographic globally, we are living so much longer. And I love that they always say that to me. So 60s, you go. You still got your health, your agility. 70s, some things can start creeping in. And that to me really stuck. That was one of those things, as my Irish nanny would say, it stuck to my ribs. It made it to my heart. And I really, really love that because it's such a mindset for us to not get caught up in our age.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah.
I get asked all the time. I'm on the heels. I'm 59 this year. Yeah. And I get asked by so many friends of the same age, like, are you going to slow down soon? And I'm like, why?
I have no intention of.
Yeah, me either. I love what I do. I get to talk to brilliant people like you every day. I get to work with brilliant leaders. And I'm doing what I love, and it doesn't feel like work. So I know I've figured that whole entrepreneur piece out.
Yep. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. The go, slow, and stop. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I love that. 60s, you go. 70s, you slow. 80s, you stop. And one of my best friends is going to be 82 this year. And I just look at her and I'm like, man, like, I hope I have 50% minimally of the energy you have. Like, and then she's the one saying to me, you should slow down a little bit. You're doing too much. And I look at her and go, you're no different. But it makes me laugh. Like her vitality, her agility. And she's just a no nonsense person like you, but loves humor when we get together.
Yeah, I love it. I think humor is so powerful.
And I love being around older women because I think they have so much to teach us. Like I do. They have lots of knowledge. They have so much wisdom. The gap between the two is their maturity, their experience, their humor, their candor, their way to tell a story and go, why are you wasting your time on that?
I agree.
So they're my fave, and I hang out with them on the regular, and sometimes it's tea and sometimes it's something a little stronger, depends on the mood. But I love that I never know what I'm going to get, right?
I think what's powerful too is this is a difference between men and women. Men are always told what they need to do. And I think what's powerful for women is they're told, hey, this is what you need to not do. And about that, but as they get older, it's like, look, stop doing this. Just don't do that anymore. And that's what it frees you, the shackles. And I think that's what you see a lot of older women doing is they're like, I'm just not going to worry about it, do it, put up with it anymore. And the shackles go away. And I think that's where the go happens. Like they're held back and suddenly they're like, no more. And they go.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Okay, I'm going to switch to my Fab Four.
Do it.
What's one practical tip that you can give our listeners today so that maybe they could think about embracing heart-centered leadership into their daily life?
I think a lot of people don't because they're stressed. Like they know they want to lead with love and lead with being heart-centered and emotional, but they can't because they got too many things going on. So my bias is towards not just action, but inaction. And what I mean by that, as we were just saying, is what are all the things in your life, and this could be at work or at home, that you feel are time sucks, obligations, that your first reaction is to say no, but you say yes anyway, right? And really write down those things. I would spend a month doing that and then look at them and say, how can I get rid of half of these things? You won't, but you'll get rid of a handful of them. And the idea is, how can you start to build in the freedom of saying no and stopping things? Because our value isn't about doing more, it's doing valuable. And we are taught to take care of everything versus the important things. So let's get rid of everything.
You're giving me goosebumps. No is a sentence.
'Tis a sentence. Or if they can't, here's another tip I'll just tell you. If you can't say no, say yes if.
Yeah.
And you know this as a coach, but a lot of people don't. They think everything's very binary, and it doesn't have to be. But it doesn't. People can't just take your time. They have to be it's a contract. So sure, there's a trade-off. So are they going to do a trade-off or not? Because if they're not, I can tell you it should become a no pretty quickly.
And that yes if is going back to our beautiful conversation and dialogue around being assertive. Love that. Okay, I'm dying to ask you this question. So if your leadership style had a theme song, what would it be? Oh my God. Here's to your friend that laughs. You got to tell her this one.
Oh my God. Well, I want it to be, as we're moving to it, because I'm happy, because I think happy is a really good place to be, because if you're enjoying what you do, then yeah.
So we're going to channel your inner Farrell, whatever his last name is. That's the song. I love that song.
Me too.
Okay, so if you had to think about Lisa and tell us what Lisa's best quality is, and this is your chance to just dote and be and really show us your confidence. What is a key takeaway that you can give to our listeners by telling us what one of your best quality traits are?
I'm very good at being able to undercover with people what their potential is. I'm very inspiring. I can get them over there. Oh, but I'm not good at this. If you leave a conversation with me, I will tell you, look, here's your potential. You have no idea how good you are at this, and you need to go and do it. You will leave that conversation being like, I can do this. I'm inspired, and I'm going to go for it right now. You got to have someone that has your back, and I can be really, really good at that.
You're very good at that. And when I called you to talk about that situation, you picked up the phone, and it was like no time had passed. And how are you? And what are you doing? And it was a great conversation. And it was your vitality, your energy. And I was like, my God, I got to have her back on the show, because I think
You're so nice.
I think people need to hear this.
Oh, you're so nice. Well, feelings mutual, so thank you. But you got to have each other.
And that's what I was just going to say. I love and adore you. I admire you. I want to congratulate you on everything you've done since we last spoke. And I don't have everybody back for a repeat on the show. So just know you got a little special place in my heart. And I'd love for you to close out the show by finishing this sentence. Heart-centered leadership is?
I think heart-centered leadership is believing in other people you work with, but also believing in yourself.